Cool. All right, everybody. Well, let's get rolling. Welcome to Regen Network Development's Community Dev Call for this week. We've got a little bit of a quick review. We're going to do a full postmortem later, but a quick review of the last testnet, a little bit looking forward to the coming testnet, some reviews from the ecosystem service credit registry team, and some information from our new blockchain product manager, Corey. He'll get to introduce himself to the community as well and do a quick update as to what's been moving, and a little bit of some updates of upcoming events. And then, as usual, we'll just have a little bit of a moment to chat. People can ask questions, and then we'll be ending at 30 minutes after. So welcome everybody to the call. So I'm going to just do my screen share here and flip over and present. Sorry, okay. So I wanted to just briefly, especially because we canceled last week's validator call, just do a real quick set of bullet points. And Anil, if you'd like to add anything after I go over this, please feel free. Just description of how the last testnet went. We had a 90-second upgrade, which is pretty phenomenal, from Darien Gap to Papua. And then immediately after that, we had a successful emergency upgrade after some intentionally malicious code was found by some of our validators. So good job on that. And we'll be officially announcing the results and doing a sort of full postmortem on next week's validator call. So Anil, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, like we are working on that point calculation. Maybe like we'll share in next week time by validator call. We have that ready.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have the scores and whatnot ready next week. So, okay, and then just a brief looking forward to the next testnet. Regen Network testnet 3000 will be running CosmWasm with Gaia and Wasm D. So we're not quite to the point where we'll be testing Regen Ledger specifically. There's still some work happening, but we will be able to provide a service to the larger Cosmos community and essentially be running something that is Game of Zones ready as IBC moves towards Game of Zones. So we'll see how that all comes together. There's some dependencies there, but we wanted to get in and test CosmWasm with our big validator pool and run it through its paces a little bit. So that should be a lot of fun. We're not announcing the date that's going to start yet. There's going to be some conversation. Maybe we'll announce that next week. There'll be 900 points allocated to this testnet. Okay. So I'll hand it over to Corey. And Corey, if you want to just do a brief introduction before you dive into the details, it'd be fantastic. I'm sure, well, I think you probably know most of the people on the call right now, but for the great viewing audience, the millions of people who'll be watching this on YouTube.
I mean, I will say at this point, it feels like there's been, whether it's the community call or the validator call, I've said hello on a number of these, but so I'll try to keep it kind of brief for those who maybe have seen my face before, but this probably is the first time that I'm formally kind of like presenting anything, especially as Aaron, our CTO, is unfortunately not able to join today. But yeah, no, I joined Regen. I'd say this is my third week at this point, I think. And we'll be working closely with Aaron and the blockchain development team to help with road mapping, getting our iterations tight, and kind of interfacing with our internal sort of product team that works more with our pilot projects, as well as some of the external groups that we're involved in in the open agriculture space. So specifically, there's a big initiative called Open Team that Regen is a part of, and I'll be interfacing a lot with them and helping to use the kind of inputs and user needs from that larger group of folks to inform what it is that we're actually building and developing on the ledger side of things. So keeping it pretty quick for the dev updates today, the protobuf migration moving along. We have the slashing module in review. The governance module that Aaron was working on is still in progress. Nothing super big to update there. On non-destructive upgrades, there's a PR that we've had in place actually for quite some time with the Cosmos SDK. This one ticket for supporting multi-store upgrades, that is in review, but I'm also kind of tagging it as blocked here. From my perspective, there's been a lot of stuff, as maybe folks in the community have seen, that have been kind of slowing down the internal process at Cosmos in terms of like how they're reviewing the Cosmos SDK and a bunch of kind of larger organizational activities going on there that we don't need to get into the details of. But needless to say, things unfortunately have been moving a bit slower than expected in terms of us being able to contribute and get PRs merged into the Cosmos SDK. We're hoping that we can be working towards a solution where that doesn't have to be happening in the future. But yeah, this ticket is still kind of like, we're still waiting on folks from that larger Cosmos ecosystem to kind of contribute and get that piece merged. And then last piece, we have a message authorization module that there's been some good progress on. Some smaller components of that ticket are being reviewed right now, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks that can be done as well. And then just, yeah, a quick note that we've been having, I think I wrote half of a bullet point here, but the idea is that we've been having a lot of conversations with the ICF, the Interchain Foundation, about longer term, kind of our longer term relationship with the Cosmos SDK, and trying to get that to a place where we're not blocked as much, where we have maybe a bit more ownership and control over that process in such a way so that things aren't slowing us down externally. Yep, so that's it from the dev side.
Cool, thanks, Corey. All right, is Daniel on?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, Gregory.
Awesome. Good morning, Daniel. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I'm gonna keep my video off this morning because it's had a long drive home from LA this morning. But
welcome home.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Daniel. I'm head of design with Regen Network, and we're taking a look here at a screen that just gives a little bit of context, right, at the different levels of or layers of the work that we're doing here at Regen Network. At one level, you know, there's the ledger layer, which is primarily what Corey was speaking about just now. And welcome, Corey. It's great to have you on board. And what we've been doing as well is building an application, a registry application for projects where ecological credits can be issued and purchased, and is a great, like, what we believe will be like a stunning example of an application, the types of applications we expect to see built on our ledger and on our blockchain. So if you just click that image there, Gregory. The last few weeks, we've been making a lot of progress, both on design and development. You know, this page here is live. These are 3 of the pilot projects that we're going to be launching this application with. They're all in Australia, and our goal here is to allow any buyer of these ecological credits to understand in depth what this project is about, and then to purchase those credits offline. So we're deferring the online purchase of these credits at this time, and so all the deal flow happens, you know, within the developers of those projects, and then people can come online and see that their credits are there on the ledger. And so yeah, if you just click again, Gregory. Yeah, so we're managing our sprints using a user-centered design process called story mapping, and that allows us to kind of, you know, deliver the user experience on a regular basis. And so, yeah, if you click one more time, These are just some of the other designs that we're that are shaping up. Some of the notable updates that we have are, we have a map view that's in development. That's a great way to see where the projects are listed and see where your credits are as a buyer. The other and then the next week or so, where we have the profile pages for organizations and for land stewards, which is it's just, I feel like the application is really starting to take shape, and there's a lot more different routes and pages that are coming together as we continue. And then the ledger integration is also shaping up. We did some work last week on the information architecture and on the object model, and so we've really identified where this sort of first needs are from an SDK sort of standpoint, and what we can expect to see there, as we move forward, is some versions of the SDK to support this application, reading and writing from the ledger. So yeah, I'll stop there. If you have any questions, Gregory, I can answer those, or I can pass it back to you.
That's great. Happy if anybody on the call has any questions or comments, please feel free to share. Cool. We'll keep on trucking. Thanks, Daniel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, maybe just reload this page, Gregory.
Yep. Thanks, Will. We've got a quick update from Will on an active conversation that we've been having internally in our team and also with the larger Cosmos community about sort of optimal token economic design for a great proof of stake network. And Will is going to just share a really brief update about, the thinking going on there and what's moving.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly run down through my bullets here, just that proof of stake networks rely on high participation in staking and game theoretically the kind of incentive mechanism answer to this is to punish non-stakers. And technically Cosmos wasn't able to implement that initially, and so they instead implemented an inflation mechanism where people with stake tokens get rewarded. And the downside of this is that those with stake tokens are essentially collateral damage in that they pay damage, they pay tax on this mechanism. So even though the idea is to punish people who are not staked, people who are staking are paying tax on that dilution process. So it's just I guess problematic for it essentially creates distortion in the incentive signals there, and that there are downsides to staking of paying tax on that dilution mechanism. So there's another way to do it, demurrage, and that would be lessening the supply of non-staked tokens. So I have, there's been an ongoing conversation on the Cosmos forum for, I guess, like a year and a half now. And so I added some of my thoughts into that thread. It's something that is an ongoing question, both in Regen Network and in Cosmos. And I'd love for people with opinions on it to join the thread and get your voice in there. Yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Cool. All right, and then we'll just conclude with a couple of upcoming events and things happening. With Open Team, we'll be participating in person or remotely, perhaps out at Piscinus Ranch, hopefully in person, March 17th through 20th. And this is an example of, in our architecture, essentially a sentinel farm, or that is to say a high caliber research farm that's providing sort of peer-reviewed data about an agro-ecosystem that can then be used in various verification protocols in the bioregion that it exists. And so working with our partners there to sort of improve cryptographic security of data collection, and just sort of the science and methodologies behind that is what's going to be happening out there. I'm going to be headed to Barbados to do a presentation, 2-day presentation to the International Development Bank in Barbados. This is an outgrowth of the pilot project that we successfully ran in Barbados at the Walker's Reserve, which is a restoration of a sand mine. And then there's the Purdue Oats Conference, and we're partnered with Purdue and a larger ecosystem, again, open team. And so there's, this is sort of like a deep tech deep dive into sort of an API superstructure for how the different apps in the open team ecosystem are relating, and we'll either be attending in person or remotely, not sure yet. And I'm not sure if anybody there's sort of some other team members on, if you're sharing up, feel free to throw it in. And yeah, with that, we'll just sort of open it up briefly to see if anybody has questions or comments or additions here. And if not, we'll wrap the call. Cool. Well, as always, we'll have the next
Gregory, I'll add one more just layer of context here, which is for those of us that haven't been noticing what's happening in the corporate world right now in terms of relating to ecosystem services credits and carbon credits, the last 3 weeks have been absolutely unbelievable. It seems like each corporate entity wants to like 10 times their opponents, right? So about 6 months ago, Amazon came out with $100 million announcement that they were partnering with the Nature Conservancy to, sequester carbon and use natural climate solutions. And then about 3 weeks ago, Microsoft came out and announced that they are putting $1 billion into a fund to offset all of their carbon going back to the beginning of their company in 1975. And then Delta Airlines just announced last week that they're going to become the first carbon neutral airline, wanting to offset all of their carbon starting in March of this year. I don't think they'll actually be able to do it in March, but they're going to start accounting for their carbon starting in March. And then Bezos just announced 2 days ago or 3 days ago that his Earth Fund, that's a $10 billion Earth Fund. So this market that Regen Network is looking to address is absolutely exploding right now, which is not only great for our business opportunities and the future of Regen Ledger, but obviously also great for the planet and our ability to have our grandkids have a very livable planet. So things are good on that front.
Fantastic. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, really lots of excitement in the broader ecosystem. Couldn't be more heart by seeing. And
yeah, and again, we should take this all with a grain of salt because these are corporate promises, and promises are cheap. How the money actually gets deployed is to be seen, but at least making public announcements is a great first step at this.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been sort of an active conversation about this. I've seen on our Telegram channel about that very point, which is, is it enough? Like, is the sort of like incremental change of corporations making these pledges and being carbon neutral or whatnot really what's needed, or do we need something more transformational? And if people have opinions, jump in and share. I tend to think that it's sort of both. We need to get geared up with incremental change and meet the corporates where they're at and make sure that it's in integrity and it does good work. And we need to be working on a bigger systems transformation. And that kind of just creates space for that opportunity.
Yeah. One piece of that conversation that I think is worth sharing and for people to understand is a lot of people, when they hear that we're working on, corporate offsets and things, are like, yeah, that's great, corporate offsets, but shouldn't these companies be first not emitting and reducing their carbon footprint in the first place? And the good thing for all of us on this call to understand is the way that offsets work. When a company builds into their business model that they're going to buy carbon offsets for all of their carbon, that means that it's in their P&L, right? Their chief financial officer realizes that if their company produces a lot of carbon, emits a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, then they're going to be forced to buy carbon credits. What this does is it gets their chief financial officer aligned with their chief sustainability officer, and they're now going to make decisions within their company to reduce their impact, which is a lot cheaper to reduce your impact than to offset your impact. So that's really, you know, a great example of that is Lyft, you know, the car ride company. They offset every single ton of carbon that they produce for every car that drives. So now they've been really incentivized to get their riders to use shared rides rather than individual rides, and to ride scooters and bikes instead of cars. And they have a real bottom line reason to try to get you to use those lighter carbon footprint methods. So yeah, we need a transformational change here, but carbon credits and carbon offsetting is an important part of getting a company to produce less carbon in the first place.
Cool. Thanks, Christian.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to chime in on that before we close the call up?
Thanks, Christian. That was great context.
Yeah, fantastic, everybody. Well, super grateful to see everybody here, and looking forward to join the validator call next week if you're interested. The last thing I'll share before I almost forgot, I'm going to be trying to reschedule the call, these Wednesday calls, likely to an hour later, just so everybody's aware of that, so that our community member Adriana, who also has a conflicting weekly stand-up call with the Tendermint team, can join us on these calls. She's stepping in as a core sort of member of our validator and community in different ways, and she was really hoping to be able to make these calls. So I'm gonna do a little bit of conversation on Telegram about that before I make the sort of final decision and move the call. But just to let everybody know, going to be trying to move this call in the coming weeks. So thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks everybody for all your good work in the world, and I look forward to seeing everybody in 2 weeks, or maybe on the validator call.